started talking and saying weird things.
I felt like God.
Half man and half ape.
Psychoanalysts and jailers. Inconfidence and traitors. And all the feminists in halos. All entertaining.
Welcome to Strange TV. My name's JD Strange, and I'm joined here with Martin from Attrition.
He started talking.
I felt like God. Alpha male manipulators. Denizens of alligators. And spectators, all entertaining. Great debater.
I was amazed by your show. You really were the main event. To be honest, I hadn't heard you guys before the show, so it was a totally new experience for me and totally cool. Loved the production. I thought the sound was great, really good sound and performance. I loved the burning of the joss sticks.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know, but because it's weird because it's lost in like mists of time. But I do like most nights. I put in. I love incense anyway. It's like just gets you in a slightly different place, and I burn in it. Most nights really. Occasionally I'll miss one if I'm down the pub. But yeah, so I have done that. So I always wanted to bring it on. It kind of makes it like a religious experience for me, really. But it's been, I didn't used to do it in the early days, but I think at least 20 years. And I kind of panic because when I can't, if I haven't got any, or sometimes you get venues, particularly in the UK now, where they're like so against any kind of fire, and so it's like they occasionally I just can't, they won't let me use it, it's not that often, but it's more than it used to be because even some places don't even want smoke machines, which is it's awful. But I mean, having at the speaker box with all the candles at the front of the stage, that would never happen, I don't think, in most countries now, but I liked it. But yeah.
We don't have too much health and safety in Bangkok, Martin. I don't know if you've noticed.
Noticed by the traffic. Yeah.
Was it your first time to the city, or had you been here before?
Yeah, yeah. We had a week. Yeah, it was great though. I loved it. Yeah, we're definitely going to come back.
Yeah, and you mentioned,
part of it. Sorry?
Sorry, you mentioned the early part of your career, and then not in the earlier part, but at least for 20 years, which
the
means
incense.
the incense.
Yeah.
So for the career must go way back to
It's
1980, right?
Yeah, the first gig we ever
Formation.
did, December the 8th, 1980. So it's nearly 45 years ago, but it doesn't seem like that. It's crazy, I just feel like I've done a few years and I'm just getting into it. But yeah, I found out later that was the day John Lennon was shot. Because someone wrote that when they were interviewing us, they put that at the beginning of the interview. And I went, wow, I never realized, because of course it was New York. So it was really the next day. It was really the 9th in England at that day. And so I guess I heard about it. I mean, it was different back then. You didn't hear everything immediately, did you? But it was like, yeah, that's like, so officially it is the day he was shot. And it was our first gig. I don't think there's any significance whatsoever about that, but it's just interesting. But yeah, and we were all guitar, bass, and drums, a sort of anarchist punk band, really.
Yeah.
We weren't the electric, well, a bit post-punk, maybe, really. But we didn't have a synth between us on the first 4 gigs, just around Coventry. So I'm from Coventry and I'm here now. But I wasn't always here. I was in London and Holland for a while.
Before the band, there was the fanzine in Coventry, which, I mean, you must have been a teenager doing that at that point, right?
I think I started it when I was 19, actually.
Yeah.
It was 1979. So, and I did it for 2 years. And then at the end, I'd had enough and I really wanted to just do music, but I was I was never a musician and I don't think of myself as one, even though I obviously am, but not a traditional musician. So I was an art student. So, that was a good qualification to start a band back in those days. Probably still is now, So I was doing that, and then I just thought I basically got really into punk. It saved my life, kind of. That was it for me. When I heard the Sex Pistols and the Clash and went to see them, and all those bands, and it was amazing. But I couldn't really do music. I thought, well, there was a lot of fanzines in those days, a lot more than now, and I just thought, yeah, I'll do that. That's what I'm going to do. So I did it for 2 years, and it did quite well. I used to do it every month, and we'd print 1,000 copies after the first few, and get them all locally and down in London and Birmingham. But it was probably helped by the fact that the specials were from Coventry and Two Tone, and I'd interview them, of course, in the early days, and Brad, the drummer, used to work in the record shop, little independent Virgin Records here, and I'd go in and he'd be there and he'd go, I've saved you there's some weird electronic music come from New York or whatever. He'd go, I thought I've put that by because I thought you'd like that. So it was great. I remember it being Lydia Lunch at the time. I think I've still got that
What's it like seeing the Pistols live? It's not many people did.
Yeah, I
Really.
saw them in I saw them in December '77 in Coventry. It's like a secret gig,
Yeah.
and by then, because I'd got into them at the beginning of '77, I was still at school, but it was like I got into them, and then I'd already seen the Clash and the Damned and Susie, and well, the first gig I ever saw was the Stranglers. I'd seen loads of other bands, so I think that took a little bit of the impact away. It was still amazing, but I think if I'd seen them first, like a lot of people had done, that went on to form bands immediately, they'd have probably blown me away more than they actually did. But the records, like I found Anarchy in the UK in a second-hand bin in Woolworths, and I just couldn't stop playing it. And that's why I do music. Definitely, that was the catalyst to do it.
How would you compare the sound live of the Pistols to that LP you found in the bargain bin in Woolies?
And obviously, their album was quite well produced, actually, wasn't it? Never mind the
Very well.
bollocks. Is
That's
like
Thomas.
the image
Yeah,
you can't
yeah.
play. It's actually it's a brilliantly produced record. Um, it was much more haphazard live. It was the same with the Clash, actually. I loved their gigs because they were much more anarchic than their records, even though the first Clash album is a bit lo-fi, but I like that actually. I think there's something good about that. But yeah, they were important days. But it's funny, I was talking to someone recently in a band saying they really influenced me to do music, and they were, oh no, because Attrition doesn't sound like that. They're like, well, no, no, that's not right. And I thought, well, you don't have to copy someone. You can be inspired, but you do your own thing, don't you? So that gave me the energy and the inspiration really to do it. But I got bored with doing the fanzine after a while, and so that's when I started Attrition.
Wasn't there? I mean, forgive my ignorance because I'm probably a generation kind of a little bit younger.
Yeah,
But doing some research, let's talk about the cassette generation and the cassette movement. And I remember C90, and I remember all these bands on that free cassette with the NME. But predating that in the 80s, you guys were playing around with tape recordings and even had one produced by Cherry Red, right? A compilation.
yeah. I mean, it was a big thing. Cassettes just
Yeah.
generally. My friend Gary Levermore ran a label called Third Mind Records, and in the early '80s he put out some tapes called Rising from the Red Sands, and it was a compilation of all these new kind of industrial post-punk experimental bands. It was amazing. We were on like 3 tracks on various volumes, and they created a lot of buzz, and there was articles. Dave Henderson was writing in Sounds at the time, which was like the NME. It was a rival to that, and that was so we would get in there, and there was a big thing, and a lot of it was cassettes. But you'd put a cassette out and sell 500 copies. It wasn't like 10 demos or something. It was a proper way to release stuff really independently. I guess because it was cheaper, and it was easy to people to copy them and get them round, and so that was quite a big boom, and the big labels and magazines got involved as well because it's definitely a craze for a few years. It's come back a bit actually. There's definitely an interest in cassettes again, which is crazy really because they're rubbish.
Not the best way to listen to music.
Yeah, handy. I mean, handy to go around, put in your car in there back in the day, I suppose.
Yeah, quite interesting to do a repair job on as well with a HB pencil and a roll of sellotape. Yeah, I remember a few repair jobs on cassettes. You were lumped in with the likes when you moved from the guitar drum based and then moved to using synthesizers and
Yeah, just
electronical
quick. Yeah,
um,
yeah.
equipment. You were lumped in with like the likes of Throbbing Gristle and Psychic TV.
We weren't that weird, really. I don't think. We did do some weird tracks, but yeah, we just got into synths. I think because although we were inspired by punk, it was bands like Cabaret Voltaire and
Right. Yeah, yeah,
well,
yeah.
things like Magazine, Joy Division, the kind of post-punk. But Cabaret Voltaire was a massive influence in terms of sort of how to do music. I think, and I really like them. And actually going to see them later in the year because they're doing a 50th anniversary
Oh, wow.
tour in the UK. The two of them that are left, because Richard Kirk died, but they hadn't done anything for decades, and they're doing a few shows, and they've sold out really quick. You can imagine. So people are coming from all over the world for those. So I'm looking forward to that. That'll be good. But yeah, it was more that kind of, yeah, I don't know what you call it really, industrial maybe, post-punk. Certainly was bigger in other countries than the UK at the time. But yeah, so that's and then eventually, the drummer went on holiday, so we got a drum. I bought a drum machine, and he was never reliable. Like they never are drummers, are they? But
you got to punch the information in twice with a real drummer.
Yeah, that's right. So I got a drum machine, and I soon got a TR-808, which was the best one you could get at the time, and brilliant. And then my brother played guitar, but he was rubbish, so I told him to go. And then Julia, my singer's brother, he was really into like Human League and Kraftwerk, and well, I was as well, but he was really he didn't really like guitar music at all at the time, so he was more of a synth influence as well. But we still had bass guitar and vocals and bits of like sampled vocals and all sorts of things. So a bit noisy outside because they're collecting the bins today. If that picks up on your recording. So yeah, some industrial noises outside. So yeah, so that all sort of
collectors. But going way back past punk, I think you may have been influenced by the likes of the Velvet Underground and that kind of scene.
Yeah.
So here's my question, my first real question. What's the best Velvet Underground album, in your opinion?
There's only one for me, and that's the first one.
Really?
Velvet Underground. Okay. Album-wise, there's still great tracks on the other ones, but I think as an album, it was just like kind of pretty near perfect,
apart from European Sun, perhaps.
No, I love that song.
You love European Sun.
Well, maybe it's the lyrics. I don't know. I love the lyrics.
It's kind of chaotic, isn't it? But,
yeah, that's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it's not. I kind of like that third album, just as kind of melodic songwriting.
But to me, they're more pop, and although they're still good songs, I like that more avant-garde nature. And Nico being on the first one, she was great, and that added a whole different texture to the whole album, I think. And then, of course, Warhol's cover as well, even that, So of course
that's the model for Attrition as well. The chanteuse female vocalist has been with you all along, right?
Yeah, and then later on, we didn't have them at first, but I eventually started working with violin players or viola and stuff, and that's what Velvet's had as well. But I hadn't really thought of that. I think actually I was more into early Roxy music with Eno, I think. But I want to say more. I mean, they're both as great, They're just. I think it's just I heard Roxy music when I was like a young teenager, before I heard Velvet, because they weren't so well known at first.
Much more accessible, right, in Coventry to hear Roxy music than.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, those early albums are still. I mean, I like that sort of stuff, and Bowie, of course. T-Rex and Cockney Rebel. I loved all that. That was the first things that I heard, really, that I got into. And then things got a bit boring, and then punk came along, and then it took off for me.
So what were some of your most memorable moments in the 1980s touring or recording? What were some of the high points and maybe the low points?
It was. I think a lot of it. It was because we only started in the very last week or something of 1980, last fortnight. So everything in the 80s.
The day Lennon died.
Well, yeah, that's right. So we did start then. Yeah. But so everything in the 80s was new. That's what I was going to say. It was the first. We did. What did we do at first? We just did a few gigs, and then it was a rare time when I actually had a job for someone else. So I was working at what was the Polytechnic then, so it's the Coventry University now, in the computer department. I didn't really want to do a proper job, but I did that for a bit, and basically saved up and bought lots of musical equipment so I could start. So I bought a little 4-track. There were little 4-track recorders, the Porter Studios.
Sure.
Use tapes, which they I mean, you don't need them now, do you? But they were popular for quite a few years, weren't they? Eventually went digital. But yeah, so we started doing some gigs, but then we just got into recording loads and loads of our little 4-track recordings, and then releasing them on these cassettes that were coming out everywhere. And the other thing is, because I'd done a fanzine, there was a whole network of fanzines, and I got a sort of foot in the door with that. So I had a lot of contacts. So I'd be sending off our demos, to all around the country or even abroad occasionally. And so it got us lots of interviews and reviews, So it was a good way. And then even I think 81, we started to play outside of Coventry pretty quickly, which I always think is really important, because I've seen so many bands play their hometown and get known, and then that's it. They don't know how to go past that point, and then they just die. And it was the 90s. It wasn't till like mid-90s that we first toured America, and that was before it died, as it has now. But yeah, in those days, I liked going there. And that was amazing. That was really exciting. We used to do 25 dates or something around the States for 6 weeks. But that's we're on the 90s now. So
those early days, it was because you didn't have the drummer, the drum kit, the large band. It was maybe a little bit easier to tour around with your 808 and your. How many were in the group? Like 3?
three of us. It was
Three
there
of us,
was
right?
the
Yeah.
classic 80s lineup is me, Julia singing and playing bass, and then and her brother Ashley doing synths. So, but then we'd often have another person to do slideshows because we'd have visuals going
Do
on.
the lights and the slideshows, yeah.
Yeah, not always. Sometimes we couldn't afford it. It's the odd one-off gigs. We couldn't always do it. But for tours, my friend Alan used to do that. And so yeah, so we're still a car, but yeah, I have occasionally had a drummer play with us, but it's been a special guest somewhere. They haven't had to travel with us. And then eventually we got back into occasionally having guitar, and I've had violin live once or twice, a few times, but generally that's just on the record. So yeah, so then it's just expanding. I've got more influence from definitely a bit more classical instruments came in the lineup, and also even at the beginning we did soundtracks for things. So I sort of hover between doing songs and doing ambient tracks. So I've done some tracks for films, or we did the score for a little independent American horror film in 2011. And then we've played that live, which is nice to do a different thing. So just all instrumental. And we did that. When was that? 2018. A highlight of the band is I played my horror film score in the mountains in Transylvania. And I thought
What was the name of the film? What was the title?
it's called like Ghost, but with a dot, not like the famous film Ghost. It's got G.H, But I didn't call it. The soundtrack's called Invocation because I've turned it into an album and then released that. So we just did and then we've got a film that we made for it, which isn't actually the film it was written for. So it's taken on a life of its own. I don't think you'd struggle to even find the film anywhere, actually. I think it just came out on DVD and that was it back in the day. But yes, it was when I played in Transylvania, I was like, I wish I could tell myself when I was 14 reading Dracula that I was going to be doing that, because it was amazing. I was really pleased with that.
I love the accent of Romania, Transylvania, Hungarian, that Eastern European kind of Dracula-esque kind of barbarian Gothic kind of vibe. It's a really nice, really nice part of the world. Actually, really cool.
I've only been once to Transylvania, but yeah, we've played around with Hungary and around there, Czech Republic, I suppose.
Budapest.
Yeah,
Budapest,
we played
Prague.
And then Poland and a lot of things like that. Yeah, we've been quite a lot. But I don't know for the life of me why there isn't a really big Gothic festival in Transylvania. And I can't be the only person that's ever thought of it, but I think back in the day, you probably didn't have reliable electricity and things, or whatever, or just some strange regulations.
I do have the accolation of I think I won an award at a Transylvanian horror film festival for a short film once.
Yeah, that's good.
I think they got at least one film festival there.
Music one, don't they?
But music, no, I don't think they do.
It would be. I mean, Germany's where the biggest ones are. They've just had Wave Gothic from this last weekend, so you'd think people there would have thought about it because it's not a million miles away. But I don't know. Maybe one day. But yeah, it would. It was really nice there. Just went for a week.
Fantastic. And what was the highlight of the States for you out of all? I mean, back we're looking at the 90s now, where each state was kind of slightly different. As opposed to now, it's kind of merged into one corporation.
I know it's a bit like that with Europe in a way. It was always it was different back in the day, but I mean, I did go a lot of times to the US. I worked out I've probably spent about a year of my life there, either on tours or visiting people and what have you. So I've been to most. I've probably, and I've no doubt I've been to more states than most Americans have. But I don't know. I mean, they are different. I don't know. I mean, they're all, yeah, there's good things everywhere. I love the Arizona deserts, and luckily I only went there in the winter. But I love that. I think it's things like that because you just don't, it's something you don't get in the UK, and you hardly get in Europe anything like that. But yeah, I love that. I love New Orleans. A lot of the cities, Chicago, San Francisco. LA is pretty good, but well, not maybe not at the moment, but it's pretty good. But I don't drive, so it's a bit of a nightmare, really. I mean, I didn't have to; people drove me around, but I find that a bit. I don't like that really. That kind of. I like places where you can walk. So New York and San Francisco was pretty good. Uh, just like yeah, I did. Florida was a bit. It's just like a swamp, really, isn't it, with Mickey Mouse? So I'm not sure about that. But
And alligators.
yeah, and alligators. I'm sure there's something else. Yeah, fast food. I don't know. I mean, I've been a lot of places, but currently, I don't think. I think I'll give it a miss. And I thought I prefer the east than the west at the moment. Speakerbox was good. I liked it there. It's much. I think it's much smaller than that. This one, but I don't mind. It's good fun to do. Um, and we've got a few UK, and we're playing this in July. We're playing this vinyl on demand festival. It's called in Friedrichshafen in Germany, and it's basically loads. It's a label, vinyl on demand, that puts out lots of fun. You could guess vinyl editions. Actually, they do CDs as well, but they do like lots of early electronic and industrial and experimental bands. They did a double album of Attrition actually about 10, 12 years ago. So they're doing a festival and they've got a lot of the early bands playing. I mean, Lieback's quite big. They're playing. Clock DVA and Attrition, the legendary Pink Dots, Severed Heads from Australia, SPK, which is Graham Revell, that went on to do a lot of Hollywood soundtracks. So there's this festival and it sold out in I don't know, a few hours of the tickets being on sale. So we're going to be there for three nights in I think it's around the 18th of July for 3 nights. So I'm really looking forward to that because there's a lot of old friends there in the other bands, and it'll be a bit of a old timers industrial party.
And I'll get a get together.
Question that's just popped into my mind actually is about the change in media over the last 50 years. And some would say when the internet came around with, Napster and file sharing, and it kind of killed the industry in a way. But as the Chinese say, in disaster there's opportunity. It's easier for bands to kind of get their sound heard, perhaps, and to collaborate, perhaps, with the internet now. Obviously, you need to tour more because making money from downloads from Spotify or whatever is not going to keep most bands clothed and fed. So what's your take on that and the change of media formats over the last 50 years?
I think that was around about 2000, wasn't it, when everything was all the illegal downloads and what have you. It was, first it was okay because there was people getting to hear us that wouldn't have heard us, I think. And there was, but then it got quite bad, and I remember sort of later on, I don't know really what year it was, 2005, later on in that decade, a lot of bands on here, everyone's going, well, there's no point in releasing anything, and it was all like probably later, even 2010, but there was a real downer, and I felt it a bit as well, and it took me longer to do another new album because it didn't seem so urgent, to do. So that was difficult. But then what happened though, I think, is I mean, I think it was partly driven by like really expensive CD prices, wasn't it? I mean, we charge £10 now, and we've done that for 20 years, but I remember them being at least 15 back in the day, which would be worth like, 20 now or 25. So I think that really helped people get fed up with CDs.
Also,
And
don't you think that there's an argument that if you do pay a certain amount for a product, then you're going to have a certain amount of loyalty to that
that's another
artist. You know,
point. Yeah,
when you're saving up your pocket money or your paper round money to buy, the Velvet Underground and Nico, it means a lot to you. 30
yeah,
years later because you've invested so much in it. So
yeah,
yeah, I'm sure there's and I used to like the tangible kind of media, holding an LP, looking at the cover, looking at the back, and holding it
yeah.
tight to your chest because you thought someone else would come in the store and
You're
buy it
right.
before you do. So that's gone,
Look at
that's
that.
missing. But there's also so much more accessibility, which
Yeah,
democratizes the whole industry in a way.
I think there was that downtime, but also then things started coming back, like vinyl started coming
Yeah.
back and cassettes and lots of independent releases. So they got back to the like, and it's like that now. It's like I mean, we did a cassette version of the Black Mariah, the latest album, and as well as vinyl and CD and download streaming, everything. And I think it went back a bit to how I started doing it. We'd be putting out our cassettes and our independent releases, or working with a small label doing the same. And then it got a bit too sort of faceless, like I say, expensive plastic boxes on bigger labels. And I quite like it now, and I'm totally happy. I'm at ease with doing independent limited editions and handmade this sometimes, and I like that. So I think that came in, didn't it? And I think that got the industry back on its feet, really, all that, and got people buzzing about these actual releases again.
What you were saying about exposure as well, because there's been over the last year or 2 years, we've had in Bangkok, I mean, which is like not somewhere many bands consider as being a worldwide, tour date.
Yeah.
We've had these kind of shoegaze, dream pop bands from England in the 1990s, the likes of Ride, Slow
Oh,
Dive,
yeah, I don't
uh,
know anything
S-
about it.
Smashing
Yeah.
Pumpkins are playing, and it's all through this kind of this Asian kind of obsession with that genre of music. So these
Right.
bands who would never otherwise have had the opportunity to pay to like 10,000, young Thai students.
Well, yeah.
Are being discovered through Spotify. So, yeah, it's interesting, and tangible media is coming back as well. I've noticed I sell books, and ebooks have slowed down, but physical
Right.
books have picked back up. So yeah, I think we're going
Fanzine
through a
back
yeah.
as well. Yeah. As far as people buying music, I don't think it matters what format they buy it in, does it? And I really don't. I really don't mind. It's just good when people support music.